The following was recorded on June 9th, 2025. Please keep in mind laws, guidelines, and processes may change over time. This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, presented by Italiancitizenship.com. Of course, we're back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian, and I am Rafael Di Furia. And in this episode, we wanted to talk about the recent bill put out by the Italian Parliament that has to do with a potential new procedure for Italian citizenship by descent. Of course, because this is a bill, what we are going to be talking about is not currently in effect. So please keep in mind throughout this episode, when we are talking about the bill, that we are talking only about things which do not yet exist but have been proposed. This bill could come to pass, but it's also possible that it may never pass, or if it does pass, it may pass with changes. But Marco, just to get straight into it, can you tell us a little bit more about this bill that released on the 6th of June, 2025?
This bill was announced originally in the press conference that was held when the Tajani decree was first announced. So this is one of the two bills that the government made reference to in the press conference. Now, as you mentioned, this bill may never be approved or may be approved at some point, but with changes. So what we're going to be talking about in this episode is provisions that were proposed and that may or may not be discussed by the parliament at some point. And as you also mentioned, there is no reference in this bill to the eligibility requirements to apply for Italian citizenship. This bill is simply about the procedure to apply for citizenship by descent. So it doesn't change or alter in any way the eligibility requirements to apply for Italian citizenship by descent. The key point in this bill is the creation of a central office within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is going to be handling all of the citizenship applications submitted by people that reside abroad. Now, according to this bill, this central office will handle the citizenship applications through the mail. And you would need to send your documents through the mail. So the consulate, according to this bill, would no longer be responsible for processing citizenship applications, and more specifically, citizenship by descent applications. And the consulate would remain responsible for handling other things, for example, processing passport requests or IDs, registering Italian citizens with the AIRE, and registering birth certificates for minor children. But again, citizenship by descent applications would be handled by the central office, which would be established in Rome within the ministry's office within 1 year from when this law goes into effect, if this law goes into effect, because we're talking about a proposal, like we mentioned, and not about an actual law. This will become a law if the parliament discusses this proposal and approves it. Now, with that being said, the consulates would retain some residual tasks regarding citizenship by descent, and more precisely, they would continue to be responsible for issuing certificates confirming that somebody never renounced their Italian citizenship. And this will continue to be necessary for people applying for citizenship by descent because, of course, it will continue to be a necessity to prove if and when your Italian-born ancestor ever became naturalized. Now, there are additional provisions included in this bill which have to do with how the central office will communicate to individuals who have submitted their applications for citizenship by descent. And it's specified that this office can communicate to these people through email. So in short, it's not necessary to communicate to individuals who have applied for citizenship by descent through PEC or through other certified methods of communications. It is sufficient to communicate with individuals who have applied for citizenship by descent or who want to apply for citizenship by descent through regular email. Of course, this is mostly due to the fact that individuals who want to apply for citizenship by descent reside abroad, and in most cases, they don't have a certified email, also known as PEC. But of course, it's interesting how in this bill it is specified that communications can happen through regular emails. Other provisions included the restitution of the original documents in the case that the application is rejected. And surprisingly, we have seen that this bill specifies that the restitution of the documents in the case in which the application is rejected uh, is done through the mail, and that the applicant needs to pay for the shipping. And finally, a provision within this bill has specified that when this central office will be created, the processing time for applications submitted to this office will be up to 48 months. So it will be possible for this office to take up to 48 months to process citizenship by descent applications that are submitted to the central office, which may be created within the office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, it is also specified that until this office is created, and if this office will be created, meaning if this bill will be approved, until then, the citizenship applications will continue to be processed by the Italian consulates and Italian municipalities. And of course, we have been receiving a lot of questions from clients and viewers in general who were wondering where to submit their citizenship applications, because there was some confusion at the beginning where it wasn't specified whether the consulates would have continued to process citizenship application. But of course, it has become clear over time, and even more with this bill, that the consulates will continue to process and receive citizenship applications from people who reside abroad, and the Italian community will continue to receive and process citizenship applications that are submitted by people who reside in Italy. So no change there. The applications will continue to be submitted there until when this bill will be potentially approved and this office, this central office, will be created, at which point people will have to use this office to submit citizenship applications through the mail. Of course, it's important to reiterate that this is just a bill. It's just a proposal, so this may never see the light of the day, meaning that consulates and municipalities will continue to process citizenship applications in the case that this bill is not passed, or even in the case that this bill is heavily changed while it's being discussed in the parliament.
So, Marco, based on all of this, I have a quick question for you that I'm sure many people will be wondering. If this bill were to come to pass, would the rules be the same as they are currently, or would there be any changes to the rules of Italian citizenship by descent?
This bill is exclusively about the procedure, so how to submit a citizenship application. It doesn't affect the rules regarding eligibility for Italian citizenship by descent, or the rules regarding the registration of the minors who are eligible to obtain Italian citizenship.
Well, interesting, Marco. I have another question for you. And based on, again, what we've spoken about so far, I can't help but wonder if there is a singular centralized office, if there's the potential for their services to become overwhelmed. What might happen in that sort of case? I mean, what we've seen so far is over the past few years, especially, many consulates around the world have not been able to even supply appointments to individuals. So, for example, say if somebody is unable to get their application in to this new office, would they have any sort of recourse? I mean, for example, what exists currently is that if an individual can't get an appointment, or if they weren't able to get an appointment, that going to court could be a potential option for them. Would that be the same case here?
Of course, a lot of people are concerned about this office being able to handle a large number of applications. It is undeniable that even with the recent restrictions, there are still a lot of people that will qualify for citizenship by the letter of the law. And therefore, one central office in Rome might not be able to assist all of these individuals who still qualify for citizenship by descent. And therefore, there are a lot of concerns there that this office may not be the most appropriate way to go, even if more people were hired, even if this office was extremely efficient. I don't think it's plausible to think that this office would be able to process citizenship applications submitted by people that live all around the world. And therefore, I believe that a lot of people will end up having to petition the court, because let's not forget that in Italy, there is a very basic principle according to which you can petition the court if the public administration is not rendering a service to you in a timely manner. Of course, that is a basic principle that exists even in other countries, where if you are entitled to enforce your right, so if the law allows you to enforce your right, and then you cannot do it because, practically speaking, you cannot have an appropriate venue where you can successfully submit an application or do anything regarding enforcing a right, that at that point you are entitled to petition the court. So I believe that if this office was to be created, meaning if this bill was to be passed as it is without changes, and this office becomes the actual office, well, you need to present your citizenship application, they would have major problems and people would end up having to petition the courts anyway. And I have to say, the court system has been working very efficiently. We have been petitioning the courts for quite some time now to represent many clients who were unable to get their appointments at an Italian consulate even before the Tajani decree went into effect. So I believe that people will have to resort to that if this office will be created. But of course, we'll see how efficient this office will be if it will actually be created.
I will say personally, I may also have some doubts when it comes to this. And I have been surprised, though, so far with how fast things have moved with these the decree and even the bill for this. But something I'm also wondering about is for those who have had 1948 cases, who've been pursuing Italian citizenship through that route. Is this office going to now handle that? Or rather, if this bill comes to pass, would this office handle 1948 cases, or would that still be a process through the court?
That's a good point. So in one of these bills, there is a provision that indicates that 1948 cases would no longer exist. Again, if the provision will be discussed and approved by the parliament, we're talking hypothetical here. So it's just a proposal where basically they would like, with this provision, to eliminate 1948 cases from the court system and force people to submit 1948 cases to this central office in Rome, which may be created according to these bills. So that is a possibility, again, if this office will be created, if the provision that says that no 1948 cases can be presented in the courts anymore were to be passed, then 1948 cases would have to be presented to the central office and no longer in the court system. However, in the bill that talks about 1948 cases, there was an exception to which 1948 cases would continue to go through the courts. And that would be the case where the child of the female that you're using was already an adult in 1948. So when the Italian Constitution went into effect. So basically, what the government would like to propose with these bills is that 1948 cases involving a woman who had a child and was a minor in 1948 on January the 1st, when the Constitution went into effect, they would be processed by the central office, which would be created in Rome, as opposed to 1948 cases involving the child of a female ancestor who was already an adult when the Constitution went into effect. And in those cases, individuals seeking Italian citizenship would have to continue to petition the court to obtain citizenship.
Well, Marco, this has been a very interesting episode, and thank you so much for talking to us about this potential bill. Of course, again, to reiterate something that we've been mentioning throughout the episode, this bill may or may not come to pass, and of course, it could be changed. This is just what is currently going on in Italy, so of course, we wanted to make sure to bring this information to you. But of course, Marco, if anybody is needing help to get Italian citizenship through whatever process it may be, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can send us a message through the contact form on our website, Italiancitizenshipassistance.com.
Well, thank you so much, Marco. And of course, if you're interested in more information like this, be sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel as well as the audio-only podcast. But of course, being subscribed to this YouTube channel means that you're also automatically subscribed to Ask the Italian Lawyer, another project that Marco and I collaborate on, as well as the Italian Real Estate Podcast. We, of course, are focusing on episodes of the Italian Citizenship Podcast, as well as Ask the Italian Lawyer for the time being. But don't worry, we will be bringing back episodes of the Italian Real Estate Podcast as soon as we can. Also, if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter. But again, of course, we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. I am Rafael Di Furia. This has been another episode of the Italian Citizenship Podcast presented by ItaliancitizenshipAssistance.com. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.